The Death of Marie, Summer, 2010, Fall, River Public Pool, Massachusetts. A place of screaming kids, laughing adults, and the mixed scent of sunscreen and chlorine would soon become the stage for one of the strangest drowning cases in American history. Marie Joseph, a 36-year-old woman who worked at a nursing home, stayed behind after closing time with a few friends to enjoy the pool a little longer. The water was calm, the air still warm, and the laughter of their small group echoed over the silent water. But just minutes later, Marie slipped from a slide and fell into the deep end. Her friends thought she had already left. Everyone went home. No one checked the pool again. No lifeguard returned to do a safety sweep. And so, Marie sank quietly, alone, beneath the same water that had shimmered under the moonlight. The next morning, the pool reopened. Hundreds of people, kids, parents, swimmers, jumped in. Shouts, splashes, inflatable toys floating around. Everything looked normal. No one realized that just beneath them, under that crystal-clear surface, Marie's body was still there, suspended in silence. It sounds impossible, but it happened. Some lifeguards later said, the water was too clear to notice anything. Even a police officer refused to believe it at first. For 2 full days, Marie's body stayed there, under the water that was proudly called the cleanest in the state. It wasn't until a young boy spotted something strange near the bottom that the horrifying truth surfaced. Police arrived, news cameras surrounded the scene, and the once happy pool turned into a crime scene with yellow tape and shocked faces. A woman had drowned, and for days people had swum above her without realizing it. What made this tragedy even darker was the indifference that followed. No one took responsibility. Supervisors blamed staff shortage, lifeguards blamed the watercolor, but the most chilling detail came at the end. When Marie's body was finally pulled from the water, her wristwatch was still ticking. The seconds had kept passing, unseen, unheard, beneath the laughter, the music, and the sun. The Holiday Inn Pool Electrocution, Summer, 2013, Houston, Texas. The swimming pool at the Holiday Inn shimmered under the midday sun, a mirror of blue water reflecting a sky so bright it almost hurt to look at. Guests lounged on deck chairs, drinks sweating in the heat, children laughing as they splashed in the shallow end. It was a perfect day, until the water itself turned against them. At some point in the afternoon, 3 children jumped into the pool together. Their small figures moved through the water, sending ripples across the calm surface. Then, something invisible changed. One of them stopped moving. His arms stiffened, his body froze mid-stroke. The other 2 swam toward him instinctively, but within seconds, they too began to convulse, their bodies jerking helplessly beneath the glittering surface. Around the pool, the adults didn't understand what they were seeing. The laughter faded, replaced by confusion. Then came the silence. That eerie, heavy silence when everyone suddenly realizes something is terribly wrong. A few seconds later, chaos broke out. Chairs scraped, glass shattered, voices rose. But no one dared to enter the water. The pool glowed beautifully under the afternoon light, yet it had become a silent electric trap. It took more than a minute for someone to find the circuit breaker. When the electricity was finally cut, the water seemed to calm again, its surface rippling softly as rescuers dove in. They pulled the children out one by one. The oldest, a 10-year-old boy named Caleb, was unresponsive, his skin pale and lips dark. The other 2 were breathing faintly, still trembling from the current that had passed through them. Sirens wailed in the distance. The once peaceful hotel courtyard was now a place of horror. Investigators later discovered that the cause was a live electrical leak from the underwater lighting system. The insulation around the cables had deteriorated long ago, and, though maintenance staff were aware of the issue, the circuit had never been shut off. A single exposed wire, invisible beneath the water, turned a family pool into a death trap. The family that drowned together in a Chinese resort pool, China, summer of 2019. In Jiangxi province, China, a luxury resort overflowed with visitors. Music echoed from loudspeakers, artificial waterfalls splashed in the background, and families laughed as they swam beneath the afternoon sun. Among them was a quiet group of 4, a middle-aged couple, their young child, and the mother's sister, stepping slowly into the main pool. Everything seemed ordinary at first. They played, splashed water, posed for photos. The air was filled with laughter. But only a few minutes later, the youngest child, an 8-year-old boy, slipped off his float and sank into the deeper part of the pool. His mother, unable to swim, rushed in after him. The father jumped in next, then the aunt. Within moments, all four of them were in the deep end. To the other guests, it looked like nothing was wrong. There were no screams, no calls for help, only the faint sound of water slapping against the tiles, and then silence. When the stillness became too strange, lifeguards dove in. They pulled each body out, one after another. It's already too late. None of them were breathing. The water that had been full of sunlight only moments earlier now reflected nothing but emptiness. In just a few short minutes, an entire family had disappeared beneath the surface, not because of crime nor fate, but because of love and fear colliding in a single instant. Authorities later described it as a chain drowning, a tragedy that begins when one person slips into danger and the others, driven by instinct to save them, follow without realizing they are stepping into the same trap. None of the five could swim well, and the pool lacked a clear boundary between the shallow and deep zones. The death of Fran Crippen, October 23, 2010. Fujairah, United Arab Emirates. The morning sun shimmered across the calm surface of the sea. It was the World Cup 10-kilometer open water race, one of the toughest endurance events in professional swimming. Among the competitors was Fran Crippen, a 26-year-old American long-distance swimmer, a gentle and determined athlete known as the heart of his team. He once said, "In the water, I feel more alive than anywhere else." But that day, the water would take his life. The air temperature climbed above 38 degrees Celsius, and the sea, far from refreshing, was close to 32 degrees Celsius. The heat was brutal, yet the race went on. No one wanted to quit. Crippen swam steadily for the first 9 kilometers, staying among the leaders. Then, somewhere during the final stretch, the cameras lost sight of him. No one noticed. When the other swimmers finished, Fran was missing. Officials assumed he had withdrawn, but his coach knew something was wrong. Fran never gave up mid-race. A search began far too late. Over 2 hours later, his body was found underwater, just a few dozen meters from the finish line. He had died from exhaustion and heat stress, his body unable to cool itself in the sweltering sea. The news sent shockwaves through the sports world. How could a world-class athlete die during an official, supervised race surrounded by safety boats and officials? An investigation later confirmed that Fran had lost consciousness due to hyperthermia, worsened by dehydration and muscle fatigue. No one saw the signs. No rescue reached him in time. When divers pulled him out, his watch was still ticking, and his goggles were still in place. His death forced immediate reforms in open water swimming. The International Federation set temperature limits, added more rescue boats, and required constant monitoring of every swimmer during a race. The changes came too late for Fran, but his tragedy reshaped the sport. The mysterious death of Michelle von Emster, 1994. It was March 27, 1994. A body was floating near Ocean Beach, San Diego. No clothes, no ID, just a pale body drifting in the morning surf. When lifeguards pulled it out, they saw her right leg was gone from the thigh down. The flesh was torn, the bone was exposed. At first glance, it looked like a shark attack. A few hours later, police confirmed the victim's name, Michelle von Emster, 25 years old. She lived alone in a small apartment not far from the coast. She liked the ocean. She often swam at night. The night before, she told a friend she wanted to take a quick swim to relax. She never came back. The medical examiner wrote shark attack on the initial report. But when they cleaned the body and looked closer, things didn't match. Her neck and ribs were bruised. There were small cuts that looked straight, not jagged like teeth marks. Her pelvis was broken in a way that didn't fit a bite. And there was no salt water in her lungs, meaning she was already dead when she hit the ocean. Police started to wonder, if she didn't drown and it wasn't a shark, what happened? Some locals said they'd seen a man watching her from the cliffs a few days earlier, but nobody knew his name. One said Michelle slipped on the rocks, hit her head, and fell into the sea. Another said she was attacked on land and dumped into the water to fake a shark death. A few experts reviewed the wounds. One marine biologist said flatly, no shark did this. But the police didn't have enough to prove murder. Eventually, the official report stayed the same. Accidental death, shark involvement possible. Water is not always gentle. Sometimes it kills with its own silence. These deaths did not come from violence, but from hesitation and human carelessness. A single careless moment can cost a life, even in the safest of places. In the end, the scariest thing about water isn't its depth, it's its silence.